Merry Christmas, everyone. We are getting excited around here for the Christmas season. We have some special episodes coming up during Advent, but before we started into those, we wanted to give you some practical tips here at the Our Time to Rise podcast, because we know that you are probably the Christmas mastermind in your home for your people. And we want you to be able to enjoy the Christmas season as well, because God came. He came as a baby over 2,000 years ago because he loves you. We just want that to sink in for a second, that he came because he loves you. Jesus on earth, God personified, who came, lived, spoke some real truth while he was here, and then died and rose again, did it all because he loves you. And this time of year is such a wonderful time to pause and consider that. And in the middle of that pause, often we have a few things to do. And so we can get kind of wrapped up and tied up in the chaos. And we want to do those things. We want to make the special happen. And we want to do it in a way that leaves enough space to remember the miracle. So that's our goal here. We're going to sit in the practical for this episode with the end goal of making space to sit in the miracle. So here we are, and we're going to jump in to 5 tips for a thriving holiday season. Krista, how are you feeling about the Christmas season coming?
I'm excited. I love that intro so much. I really do, because that is the heart. That's ultimately what I want to just sink deeply into my bones. And that this is why we celebrate. And all of these things that we do are vehicles for that. And they're vehicles for unity, they're vehicles for God's love, for his presence. And so that's really the heart behind it. But I'm excited. As you know, I love Christmas. I love it. I love the holidays. I love any holiday, really.
That's true. You do.
I do.
Give you a Valentine's Day, you're not going to hold back.
No, I'm not. So I'm all about the celebration, and so bring it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Krista was at our house a few weeks ago and bonded with my third daughter, Gracelyn, who is our Christmas queen, which you're going to find funny, Krista, because we're recording this in November. I was on a trip. I came home a couple of days ago, and she had gone to Target while I'd been gone to start getting things for her room for Christmas, because she realizes she is captain of her room. And so even though she may not be able to go crazy, though she does take some leadership, and we're going to talk about this. She does take some leadership in the common spaces. She bought Christmas pajamas, and she was wearing them this morning. So this girl, she shares your heartbeat. And so for all of you who are listening, there may be some of you who are raising your hands right now. We're here for you. We love it. We love that you love this. And we just want to make sure that you're pacing yourselves, that you're drinking water, sleeping. And for those of you who are a little stressed out, I have my areas that I really love. Okay, how about this? I'm an in-betweener. I'm not a Scrooge. I love Christmas. I love that God came. I love it so much. I love everyone being together. The gift situation stresses me out. So that is my goal this year, is to streamline gifts. Let's jump in.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a countdown. So we're going to start with number 5.
Countdown.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Set boundaries up front and early.
Okay.
So, and again, when we talk about boundaries, I feel like, and we said this before on the podcast, but we're not talking about set these hard and fast, like this is what I will do, this is what I won't do. Like, that's not what we're talking about. That is not the heart of love. It's just not. That's just being like self-focused. These are loving boundaries that help everyone. It gets back to the clearest kind. It helps everyone know what to expect. I think it's actually the kind thing to do to address things up front, because clear is kind. And so when we address things up front, we're actually setting ourselves and others up for success. And that's more how I like to think about it. I like to frame it that way. And so, we're just coming off an election season. So let's just give that example, because I think it is one that people deal with. And that is, you may have to say, I would like to request that at the dinner table, no one talks about politics. Okay. Or let's say someone has recently decided they're not drinking anymore. Maybe wine has always been shared at the family meal, but someone now in the family has decided that they're going to be sober. And so, how are you going to address that? How are you going to respect everyone involved? You have to think through that. Maybe there are some dynamics that okay, after 2 days, things really start to unravel. And so,
Yes.
how am I going to set us up for success by making the most of those 2 days? But then after that, people go stay at a hotel, or something changes, you leave, or something, whatever it is. The problem is that we often don't think about those things until we're right on top of them. And then it really is kind of too late, because everyone's like, well, I didn't book the hotel. So how am I supposed to go stay somewhere else? It's important that we do that early so that people can plan ahead, and even mentally plan ahead. What are your thoughts about some of that?
Yeah, the image that comes to mind is guardrails. We're putting up guardrails to be able to get to our end goal, which might be everyone has a great time. And so I like to think through people's capacity for noise, for energy, for activity. If you have older people coming to stay with you and young people who are going to stay up till 2 a.m, like, what are going to be the guardrails that you set in place so that you can set everyone up for success, as you said? So it's really with an end goal of fun and good times in mind, but recognizing that is going to look different for different people. So in the Venn diagram of our family or our gathering, whatever it might just be one evening, or it might be a week when everyone's together. What's going to be our sweet spot of together time? And then how are we going to separate? Maybe that's physically, or maybe it's just activity-wise, schedule-wise, responsibility-wise. And then, like you said, thinking about that ahead of time is going to help with the planning, and it's going to make everything go better.
Yeah, and I think too, we can get resentful if we don't do this work ahead of time. So let's say that the mom is cooking nonstop throughout the holidays, but she's got older kids who are able to help, but they're not helping. So how did that happen? Right? Because now the mom's exhausted. She's feeling like no one's helping, and she's getting bitter and resentful. And well, how did that happen? Because it wasn't set up ahead of time that, okay, you're on dinner this night, or you're on the family team this night. That's okay. We're going to do family teams, and we're all sharing the meals, So I think it's also protecting from that resentment building up.
Right. So one example from my actual life in the last week, I decided I am going to give my kids a little more responsibility in the gift area, because I just already said, this is what stresses me out. And I was thinking, I was brushing my teeth, and I was thinking about the next couple of months, and I could feel my body starting to tense up. And I told myself, okay, name what is stressful for you and figure out a way to do it differently. We don't have to do it the same way. And this is the benefit of older kids. So they are going to have, they don't know this yet, but they are going to have a little more ownership in the gift situation. So that's good. And the truth is, I've held on to it for too long, some things that they should have taken responsibility for a while ago. So that is one example.
What does that look like? Because, I mean, how does a parent do that if they're buying gifts?
So what we have done traditionally, and this also gets to just kids growing up, and then how do you change things as they grow? So when they were little, we said, we will give you money to buy your siblings gifts. You get as many dollars as you are years in age per sibling. So if you're 11 years old, you get $11 to spend per sibling. But then mom still had to take them to Target. I still had to take them to Walmart. Still had to remember, like, okay, but this person's also getting them a water bottle. So we can't have 4 water bottles for your sister. There was just a lot of micromanaging. Well, I have carried that on too long. I have micromanaged that too long.
Okay. Yeah.
And my children are now old enough to take that on themselves. So that's going to be part of it. Now, I still have one in middle school. She's going to need a different level of help than my girls in college do. Like this, and I know, like, I don't even want to say it out loud. It's embarrassing how much I've helped them in the past, but it's time. It's time.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was
good.
one area. And also one area that my husband has had no involvement in. So he doesn't understand the stress.
Right.
Well, of course he doesn't, because I have chosen to put that backpack on and carry it around. No more.
Or I do have one tip about having those conversations that I do want to share. And that is using and instead of but. It's a small switch, but I do think it's an important one. So if you find that you need to have a conversation with a family member, try and emphasize the word and instead of saying but. So I enjoy spending time with you, and at times I get uncomfortable talking politics. So can we just pre-decide to not have that conversation over the holidays? So instead of saying, I enjoy spending time with you, but I sometimes get frustrated when you talk politics. I know it's a small switch, but it actually matters because it is a both and. So that's just a small little conversational tip.
Yeah, that's good. And it goes into our second tip, which is communicate early and often. So we have already covered a lot of this already, but Krista, give us your next practical that goes under this tip.
Well, I know that this is easier for some than others. Like, I get that. I get some personalities are prone to planning. Some actually want that spontaneity, and that's important to them. So there sometimes has to be a third way in there, but it's just the opening up the communication. It's saying, okay, here's some things we're thinking about. So for example, I'll just give you an example. Our kids are older now, and they are on different schedules when they're coming home, when they're leaving, right? When they're going back to college, all those things. So I'm already having conversations with them, and this is November, about, okay, what's everyone's schedule? And then how are we going to fit in everything that we want to do in this time frame? Grandparents, what are your hopes for the holiday season? And one of the things I really try and drill down is, what does success look like for each person? So, mom and dad, what does success look like for you? And I don't say it like that. I just say, what do you most want, during this time with the family? And so that's just a more casual way to say it. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm saying, what at the end of this, you'll be happy if. And I try and get that from every person so that I understand what their goals are, because the worst is when you work so hard and do all these things to make it special, and then people are disappointed. Yeah. And so then that helps me on the front end to know where to focus my time and attention, because then I am defining success. Really, I'm looking at how everyone else is defining success, and I'm asking myself that question. What does that look like for me? Because if I neglect asking myself that question, well, then that's a problem too, because I count in that equation. And so I try and do that with everyone that's going to be in my world, and then plan accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. I have already told my girls a couple of days where we are meeting with other people. So I'm coordinating not just our family schedule, but other people's schedules too, to say, okay, you need to hold this date for dinner. You can do all the things you want during the day, but dinner that night is reserved for this particular gathering that we're hosting. And it helps the earlier you can do it, especially with jobs and, like you said, people coming and going and social lives and and making their own plans, darn it. Having their own expectations and their own desires for being home and seeing their friends. Yes. So I say that. And then, Krista, you are the queen of the Google Doc. So you also create documents for sharing practical things like meal planning when you're planning with somebody else and gift giving. We have that in our house. My husband and I do. So we kind of know where we are with people.
I love Google Docs. I literally put everything on the Google Doc. I do our schedule
Mm-hmm.
and then I share it with everyone so that everybody knows, like, here it is. I do our meals. I do even, we're switching a little bit this year in how we're doing the meals because we get together with extended family afterwards. And so we're going to mix families and have like different members contributing. But we intentionally even put cleanup crews on there, which this year it's just going to be the people doing the meal. But that way we mix cousins. And also then there's not the same people cleaning up over and over again for the whole family. I'm telling you, it's magic. It works. You post it and you don't even have to tell people because it's posted and it's official when it's posted.
Yeah. Okay. We're starting to get into meal prep. So that's tip number 3.
Yes. So tip number 3 is start cooking now and keep cooking. What I mean by that is just make it easy on yourself. That's a theme. But let's just double everything while we're cooking it. Like right now, I'm making soups. The other day, I made lasagna for my niece and her friends that were coming over. They were having a night away from their college. So I went ahead and made 2 more lasagnas, put them in the freezer. So just I'm doubling everything now because there's going to be a lot of people and we're going to need a lot of food over the holiday season, not just Christmas and Christmas week,
right?
But leading up to. And so yes. I'm starting to plan now for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because funny enough, people want to eat the day before Christmas and the day after too. And the week before and the week after.
No.
Yes.
And through New Year's.
Yes.
So, I mean, and it's one of the things that I also like to do is, for example, I make Amish cinnamon rolls for Christmas morning that are the best. And we'll link to the recipe. So I do that in early December with my friends and we make them and people give them away. They like to make them for their families. But so then I have a couple of friends come over. That's our cinnamon roll day. It's this really fun bonding thing that we do together. And it's making something special for my family. So thinking in those terms that how can we also make this a fun thing and even a tradition that I do with my friends that then in turn blesses our families.
Yeah. No, it's so good. And I will say that my tip around food kind of starts to go into the next tip, but really to duplicate your meal plan. So I mentioned we're going to host dinner for a particular group that I've already reserved my older kids to be home and be here and all of that. So we're also going to host another group of people for dinner. The only overlap there is my family. So I can serve the exact same menu both nights, and the only overlap is my family. And so I would say duplicate meal plans because then that can help with prep, but it also just helps with decision fatigue. And you feel like, I know I make this well, so I can have confidence in it. The same is true for what you take to parties. Say this year, I'm always going to offer to bring dessert and I'm going to make this one special cranberry thing. And then you can know what you need to have on hand. Even if you don't make it in batches, you know what you need and you can make it quickly. So that is my tip, is to specialize and repeat when it comes to food, because it is volume. The holidays food is volume.
And let's just talk punch for a second.
Yeah.
Punch is a fantastic crowd pleaser.
Yes.
It draws us back to our grandparents and great aunts and why not? And it goes so far because we think we have to get all these drinks for these parties. No, just have good punch. You can have, you want an alcoholic punch and a non-alcoholic punch. We host a neighborhood party every year. And I just get out the big punch bowls, or if you don't have a punch bowl, I have my great Aunt Emma's, but if you just want to get a big bowl, just do your punch in that. And it goes a long way and it feels special and everybody loves it.
Yes, we have a punch bowl too, and I love it, love it, love it. And it is, as a person who spends a lot of time in thrift stores, they're pretty easy to find. in the thrift
Yes,
store.
they really are.
So go to the best thrift store where the grandmas drop off their things.
Yes.
Okay, so we're starting to get into tip number 2, which is make it easy on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So really, this is where you need to give yourself some grace. You need to decide what's most important to me and what's most important to the other people, and then what can the other people contribute?
Mm-hmm.
Which we are kind of saying the same thing over and over. But I will give an example. Christmas cookies. My girls have this thing that we make. We do a Christmas cookie day because I don't know, like whatever, 10 years ago or something when they were old enough to be all participating. We did it once and then it's become a tradition. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple of years where they begged me to do it, and I found myself an hour in standing in the kitchen by myself
Right.
saying, hello, everyone.
Yeah.
I did all this planning. I went to the store. I got all the stuff. I'm here. I blocked off hours of my day. And I decided then, if this is important to you, we need to have a lead here on this. So the Christmas queen at our house is the lead for Christmas cookies. And so because she's willing to take on some responsibility, she's also willing to have some decision-making power around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just coaching. That's just coaching the
Mm-hmm.
next generation of Christmas queens, right? So that's part of making it easy on yourself, is letting people take leadership. What
I
about you,
love
Krista?
that.
What are some practical things?
Yeah, we do that with our gingerbread houses. I stick
Mhm.
people into teams. We do a contest and they love it. My kids keep wanting to do it, so that's why we're doing it. And they're in charge. I mean, I get the houses at Costco
Right.
early, but they're in charge of their whole gingerbread shenanigans. And so they have to take the lead on that. And I love that. I would say, in spirit of make it easy on yourself, have a gift wrapping station so that you wrap gifts as you go, because that gets backed up and nobody wants to be tired and stay up all night wrapping. I would also say, if you're the primary gift buyer, then that could be a way that you rope in your spouse and say, hey, okay, I'm the gift buyer, you're the gift wrapper. So when you're watching that game, that basketball game or whatever, can you be wrapping while you're doing that?
Yeah.
So that's a good one. Keep a holiday notebook. In fact, I just got out my holiday notebook. It is glittery and it's beautiful. I'll link to it. But I specifically have a glittery notebook because I want it to look different than every other notebook. And I keep everything in there. I keep the meal schedule. I keep the schedule, all my Google Doc stuff. I just keep printed in the notebook because I like that. And then I would say a couple decorating tips, because I think people can get overwhelmed with decorating and want to create that specialness, but they are like, but how do I do that? And do I have to go buy everything at Target? Do I have to go buy everything at Hobby Lobby? No. Pick a couple of places you want to make, I call them impact spaces. So whether that's your front porch, the kitchen island, by your fireplace, just pick a couple different places, make those your impact spaces, and pick 3 colors. So 3 colors you're going to use. And what's helpful about that, it's just like with color analysis. We're all into color analysis. And it's helpful because it eliminates half the things you're buying. So you walk in the store and you're like, nope, red is not one of my colors. I'm not buying anything red. I'm only buying gold, white, and burgundy. Those are my colors. That's all I'm buying. What's nice about it is it simplifies it. It brings harmony to your home. So everything goes together. You can intermix everything because everything goes together. And you're only focusing on a few different places that are impact spaces. So you're not feeling overwhelmed by having to, just blow up Christmas all over your house.
Yeah. No, that's good. And another thing is just do what you did last year.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a new Christmas decor every year.
Exactly.
You just do what you did last year. You have all the stuff and you don't have to decide anything. You can do less. You can say, I'm not going to do as much. So that's my thing, which is why my house looks the same every single year, because I don't want to change.
And let's talk about pack it up in that, like pack it up together so that when you're getting it out, it's all right there and it's going in the same place.
That's right. That's right.
It's great.
Okay. The last tip, master your mindset over the holidays. Yeah. We have been hitting on this some, but Krista, say something more about this.
Well, the truth is that our realities are shaped by our thoughts. We live out of our thoughts. Our actions come out of our thoughts. One of the biggest gifts that we can give to ourselves over the holidays is to think about the way we think. It's called metacognition. There's actually a term for it. But all that means is that you are in the driver's seat of your thoughts rather than your emotions being in the driver's seat of you. And so this gets to managing our expectations. We talked at the beginning about, okay, so if let's say there's something that I'm really wanting to do with my family. Let's say we're going to go look at the Christmas lights downtown. But then in my head, I might have an expectation of how that's going to go. Everyone's going to be holding hands. Everyone's going to be getting along, right? And so not only do I want to do that activity, but now I've got all of these expectations around that activity. So part of metacognition is to catch myself and say, I'm going to let this unfold. I'm going to do everything in my power to set it up for success, but I'm also going to let go of those expectations so that I can be open to what it is and receive the joy of the moment. Because we limit our joy when we are constantly trying to control how things play out. And that gets to control. We have major control issues when it comes to that kind of stuff. Rather than just accepting what is, we try and control factors so that it rolls out exactly the way that a Hallmark movie would. And the problem with that is we set ourselves up for failure. And so how can we think about our thinking, take control of our thoughts, and pre-decide how we are going to be? Because the only person we can control is ourselves. And so one of my theme verses, but it's definitely my theme verse over the holidays, and that's Colossians 3:12-15. And it says, since you're set apart by God, made holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with the holy way of life, compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Put up with one another, forgive, pardon any offenses against one another as the Lord has pardoned you, because you should act in kind. But above all these, put on love. Love is the perfect tie to bind these together. Let your hearts fall under the rule of the anointed's peace. The peace you are called to is one body, and be thankful. Talk about metacognition. Like if I am setting my mind and my heart to those things every day and saying, God, I'm not going to try and control every little thing that happens. I'm just going to set my mind and heart, because that's the one I can control. I'm going to set myself to these. I'm going to ask your spirit to make me more like this. And that is how I'm going to approach my day. And so if someone doesn't respond to me the way that I want them to, okay, I'm still going to put on patience. I'm still going to put on love above all things.
Yeah. Well, that is a great way for us to end as we prepare ourselves, our hearts and our minds for this Christmas season.
Merry Christmas, everyone.